What is the true value of a life? For Camilla Bellwater, a waitress 24 years old, drowning in debt, the answer seemed $2.75. The price of the warm coffee she served all day was invisible, merely one part of background noise in a city that had long ago forgotten its dreams. But for the dying billionaire, hidden in plain sight within her diner, his life was worth everything. This is truly not a fairy tale. This is the story of how a simple, unnoticed act of kindness ignited a war for a $1 billion empire and changed the course of countless lives, beginning with her own. The smell of stale coffee and fried bacon was the very aroma of Camilla Bellwater's life. It clung to her clothes, to her hair, to her own weary soul. At 24 years old, she felt ancient. Every morning she would pull her hair into a tight bun. She put on the slightly large, faded blue uniform of the Silver Spoon Cafe and painted a smile that never quite reached her tired, gray eyes. The Silver Spoon was a relic, a stubborn holdout against the gleaming chrome and glass of downtown Boston. Its regular customers were a collection of ghosts, old people nursing a single coffee for hours, students studying for exams over greasy French fries, and the tired faces of the city's forgotten workforce. Camilla knew all of them. She knew who took their coffee black, who needed extra napkins, and who was only a bad day from breaking. She felt an affinity with them. She was one of them. Her life was a truly relentless cycle of shifts and bills. Her small apartment, shared with her younger brother Liam, was a testament to her struggle. Piles of medical bills formed tall mountains on the kitchen table, monuments to a battle she was losing. Liam, at 17 years old, had the brilliant mind of an engineer and the failing heart of an old man. He had been born with a rare congenital heart defect, and the experimental surgery that could save him cost more than Camilla would earn in 100 lifetimes. Each tip she saved, each extra shift she took, was a single drop within an ocean of debt. His quiet, labored breathing in the room next door was the clock that marked her existence. During the last 3 months, a new ghost had joined the coffee shop's array of regulars. He was an old man, probably in his late 70s, who occupied the corner booth by the window every day around 2 in the afternoon. He was impeccably clean, but dressed in clothing deliberately quite unremarkable. A simple tweed jacket, worn-out pants, and scratched-up leather shoes. He never spoke much, only ordered a black coffee and a bowl of oatmeal he rarely finished. He stared out the window for hours, his face a mask of deep and unreachable pain. The other waitresses would call him Mr. Harrison, though he had never given a name. He was grumpy, almost rude, rejecting any single attempt at courtesy. But Camilla saw something else, more, in his sunken, intelligent eyes. It was not malice, it was exhaustion, a weariness so deep it seemed to weigh upon the air around him. She treated him with the same gentle patience she gave everyone, refilling his coffee without asking, leaving his check without a word. Sometimes he would leave a tip on a $3 bill, other times he would leave the exact change. There was no rhyme or reason. On a gloomy Tuesday in October, the rain lashed heavily against the cafe's windows. The place was almost empty. Liam had had a bad night, his coughing fits keeping them awake. Both of them. Camilla felt a familiar knot of despair tightening in her chest. The last denial letter from the insurance company felt like a heavy physical weight in her apron pocket. It was a standard letter, cold and clinical, explaining that Liam's surgery was not truly considered medically necessary for coverage. It was a death sentence delivered by a nameless employee in an office hundreds of miles away. Mr. Harrison was in his accustomed, usual booth. He looked worse than ever that day. His skin was pale, almost translucent, and there was a slight tremor in his hand as he lifted his coffee cup. Camilla softly and slowly approached his table. "More coffee, Mr. Harrison?" her voice questioned, softer than was usual. He looked up, and for the first time his eyes really seemed to focus on her. Truly seeing her, he noticed dark circles beneath her eyes, and the worry etched in lines around her mouth. "No, thank you, child," his voice whispered, a dry whisper. "Just the check." As she turned to go and retrieve it, she then heard a sharp, ragged gasp. She spun back. Mr. Harrison's face was contorted into a truly silent scream. His hand clawed at his chest, and the coffee cup fell from his grasp, breaking on the floor, his eyes open with terror and pain fixed on hers. He was struggling for air, his body just beginning to slump forward. The diner owner, a burly man called Sal, shouted from behind the counter, "What is happening, okay?" But Camilla did not hear him. The world then shrunk to the old man in the booth. His symptoms felt terrifyingly familiar. The sudden paleness, the clutching his chest, the fight for breath. It was a much more severe version of the episodes Liam sometimes had. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but years of caring for her brother had forged a core of steel within her. Panic was a true luxury she could not afford. "Call 911," she screamed, her voice breaking. "Tell them it's a suspected cardiac arrest." She rushed to the booth, her mind racing. Sir, can you hear me?" His eyes were glazing over. He wasn't responding, his head falling to one side. Without thinking twice, she grabbed his shoulders, trying to adjust his slumped body in the booth's vinyl seat. It was awkward, clumsy. As she shifted his weight, his tweed jacket opened, and there, pinned to the inside of his shirt, was a small laminated card. It read, "In case of emergency, Anthony Bance, severe aortic stenosis and arrhythmia, do not administer standard CPR. Sublingual nitroglycerin tablet in right jacket pocket." Anthony Bance. That name resonated in her mind. Anthony Bance, the reclusive mega-billionaire, the founder of Bance Industries, a man whose name was synonymous with global technology and immense, untouchable wealth. It could not be this frail old man in a rundown diner. There was no time to process it. She searched for the pills in his right jacket pocket, her fingers trembling. She found a tiny, small, amber-colored vial. With trembling hands, she twisted the cap, poured a tiny white tablet into her palm, and holding his head firm, she carefully placed it beneath his tongue. "Hold on," her voice whispered like a prayer. "Just hold on, Mr. Bance. Help is on its way." She held his hand, his skin thin and cold as paper, and watched his chest waiting, praying for a sign, for a breath, for anything. The fate of one of the richest men in the world was in the hands of a waitress who could not even afford to save her own brother. And in that moment, none of his billions truly mattered. All that mattered was the weak and fragile beat of a human heart. The wail of sirens grew from a distant cry to a deafening roar, culminating in a flash of red and blue lights that pulsed through the rain-soaked windows of the Silver Spoon. Two paramedics burst through the door, their faces serious and professional, their movements efficient and practiced now. "What have we got?" asked the lead paramedic, a tall man with a calm demeanor, as he knelt beside the booth. Camilla, still holding Anthony Bance's hand, looked up, her mind a whirlwind. She then stammered out, "I think it's his heart. His name is Anthony Bance. There's a card. He has severe aortic stenosis. I gave him a nitro tablet from his pocket." The paramedic's eyes opened almost imperceptibly at hearing the name, and then upon Camilla's surprisingly accurate report. He looked at the card she pointed to, which was pinned inside the man's shirt. "Good girl, you did exactly what was right." They moved with a speed that was both terrifying and so reassuring. They connected him to portable EKG. The machine spit out a frantic, irregular rhythm upon its small screen. They administered oxygen. The silent diner now was a cacophony of medical jargon, the crinkle of sterile packaging, and the hiss of an oxygen tank. As they loaded Mr. Bance onto a stretcher, his eyes flickered open for a brief, lucid moment. They found Camilla's eyes. There was no gratitude in them yet, only deep confusion, a profound and haunting vulnerability. Then his eyes rolled back and he was gone again, a passenger in the frantic effort to save his own life. The paramedics wheeled him out into the pouring rain, the doors slamming shut behind them, plunging the diner back into an unsettling silence. The only evidence of the chaos was the broken coffee cup on the floor and the lingering metallic smell of fear. Sal, the owner, stood frozen behind the counter, a dish rag still clutched in his hand. "Anthony Bance. The Anthony Bance in my diner," he muttered, looking at Camilla as if she had grown wings. Camilla sank onto a nearby stool, her legs trembling so much that she could barely stand. The adrenaline that had surged through her just moments before now drained, leaving her hollow and trembling. Her hands, they still trembled. She had just held a legend's life in her hands. A man whose net worth could solve global hunger, yet was eating cheap oatmeal in a place like this. Why? The next few days were a blur. Camilla returned to her work, moving through her shifts in a daze. The story became the legend of the Silver Spoon. Sal then told it to all who would want to listen. The regulars looked upon Camilla with a new kind of awe. She was no longer just the quiet waitress, she was the girl who saved the billionaire. But for Camilla, it truly felt unreal. There was no news, no follow-up. It was as though she had dreamed the entire event. She scanned the news every day, her heart beating faster each time she saw the name Bance. But there was nothing. There were no reports that Anthony Bance was hospitalized. The man was so reclusive, so notoriously private, that his multi-billion-dollar corporation could probably bury the story of a medical emergency with ease. The silence was deafening. Was he okay? Did he even survive? The thought that he might have died after she tried to help him sent a shiver down her spine. life with its cruel indifference returned to its normal, exhausting rhythm. A new letter arrived, this one from the hospital's financial aid department, informing her that their application for assistance for Liam's surgery had been denied because their income was $50 a month above their threshold. $50. Her brother's life was being measured, weighed, and discarded for the cost of a tank of gas. That night, desperation was a physical entity, a crushing weight on her chest. Liam found her crying silently at the kitchen table, the crumpled denial letter clutched in her fist. "Not again?" his soft voice asked. He was thin and pale, but his eyes held a wisdom and kindness that broke her heart. She could only nod, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. He sat opposite her and placed his hand over hers. His fingers were cold. "It's okay, Camilla. We'll figure something out. We always do." "But we don't," she finally exploded, the words tumbling out in a torrent of frustration and pain. "We don't figure it out. I take more shifts. You get sicker. I apply for more aid. We get more rejections. I'm failing you, Liam." "You could never fail me." His voice was firm despite his weakness. "You're the strongest person I know." His faith in her was both her greatest strength and her heaviest burden. She felt like a fraud. What was the point of being strong if she wasn't strong enough? A week after the diner incident, just as the memory was beginning to feel like a strange, vivid dream, a car pulled up outside their modest apartment building. It wasn't just a car, it was a statement. A gleaming black Bentley, so out of place in their rundown neighborhood that it seemed to have landed from another planet. A woman emerged from the back seat. She was tall and slender, dressed in a charcoal gray pantsuit that probably cost more than Camilla's rent for a year. Her hair was pulled back into a severe, elegant bun, and her expression was one of cold, detached assessment. She strode up the cracked concrete steps to their building and pressed the buzzer for their apartment. Camilla, who had been watching from the window, felt a jolt of panic. She pressed the button to let her in, her mind racing. Who was this? A moment later, a sharp, confident knock sounded on her door. Camilla took a deep breath and opened it, and the woman stood there holding a sleek leather briefcase. Her slate-colored eyes swept over Camilla, taking in her worn jeans and faded t-shirt, the shabby state of the apartment visible over her shoulder. "Camilla Bellwater?" the woman asked. Her voice was crisp, professional, and devoid of warmth. "Yes, my name is Eleanor. I am Mr. Anthony Bance's senior legal counsel." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "He's alive? He's okay?" Camilla stammered. "Mr. Bance is stable and recovering at a private facility," Eleanor stated, her tone clinical. "He has requested that I speak with you. May I come in?" Camilla stepped back in a daze, gesturing for the woman to enter. Eleanor walked into the small living room, her expensive heels clicking on the worn laminate floor. She didn't sit, instead stood in the center of the room, a pillar of corporate power in their world of gentle poverty. "Ms. Bellwater," she began, cutting straight to the point, "Mr. Bance is aware that you were instrumental in saving his life. Your quick thinking, specifically in administering the nitroglycerin and informing paramedics of his condition was, according to his medical team, the deciding factor in his survival. Of course, we have conducted a thorough background check on you in the interim." Camilla felt a chill. A background check. They had been digging into her life. "You work 60 hours a week at the Silver Spoon Cafe," Eleanor continued as if reading from a file. "You have no criminal record. You are the sole guardian of your 17-year-old brother, Liam Bellwater, who suffers from a severe congenital heart defect. You have approximately $287,000 in outstanding medical debt and have been denied by 6 different financial aid programs for his necessary surgery." Each word was a precise clinical strike. Hearing her desperate life laid bare so crudely by this stranger was profoundly humiliating. "What do you want?" Camilla asked, her voice barely a whisper. Eleanor finally met her gaze. "Mr. Bance does not like loose ends. He wishes to resolve this matter. He has authorized me to make you an offer." She unlatched her briefcase with a snap and pulled out a single, sleek folder. She handed it to Camilla. "Mr. Bance will cover the full cost of your brother's surgery at Massachusetts General Hospital under the care of Dr. Isabel Morrow, the country's leading pediatric heart surgeon. He will also settle all your existing medical debts. In addition, a trust fund will be established in your name with a principal of $1 million to ensure your and your brother's financial security in the future." Camilla stared at the folder, her hands trembling. She couldn't process the words. Surgery, debt settled. $1 million. It was a fantasy, a fever dream. It was the answer to every prayer she had uttered in the dark of night. In exchange, Eleanor added, her voice sharp, jolting Camilla from her stupor, you will sign a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement prohibiting you from ever speaking about the incident in the diner, Mr. Bance's medical condition, or this arrangement with anyone, for any reason, for the rest of your life. Camilla looked from the folder to the lawyer's impassive face. This was not an act of generosity, it was a transaction, a clean, cold, corporate deal. He was buying her silence, tidying up a loose end. The thought was a jolt of ice water. Why? Camilla asked, finding her voice. Why was he even in that diner? Eleanor's expression tightened. Mr. Bance's personal affairs are not part of this discussion. The offer is on the table, Ms. Bellwater. Your brother gets his life-saving surgery, you get a new life. All you have to do is sign the papers and disappear. You have 24 hours to decide. The folder lay on the kitchen table like a bomb. For hours after Eleanor left, Camilla just stared at it, her mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions, relief so powerful it almost made her nauseous, wrestled with a profound sense of unease. Liam's life handed to her, the surgery, the best doctor, a future free from the crushing weight of debt. It was everything she had ever wanted, but the way it was offered felt dirty. It was a business deal. Her silence in exchange for her brother's heart. Anthony Bance was not a benevolent savior. He was a CEO closing a deal, mitigating a risk. The risk was her, the waitress who saw the untouchable billionaire at his most vulnerable moment. Liam came home from his part-time job at the library, a concession to his health that allowed him to work in a quiet, seated environment. He saw the folder and the look on Camilla's face immediately. What is it? He asked, his brow furrowed with concern. Camilla took a deep breath and explained everything, the woman in the suit, the identity of Mr. Harrison, the incredible, life-changing offer, and the single, chilling condition, the NDA. As she spoke, Liam's expression shifted from disbelief to a quiet, simmering anger that surprised her. So, he wants to buy us off? Liam said flatly when she finished. He wants to throw money at the problem, so he can go back to pretending people like us don't exist. Liam, this is Dr. Morrow, Camilla said, her voice pleading as she tapped the folder. This is the surgery. This is your chance. Does it matter why he does it? Of course it matters, he shot back, his voice rising with a rare passion. He's not doing it for you, Camilla. He's doing it for him. He's erasing an inconvenience. He doesn't see you, he just sees a loose end. I don't care if he sees me, Camilla cried, desperation finally breaking her voice. I care that you live. I care about being able to sleep one night without wondering if it will be your last. What does my pride matter compared to that? Their argument was raw and painful, fueled by years of repressed fear and frustration. For Liam, it was about dignity. He refused to be a charitable write-off for a billionaire. For Camilla, it was about survival. Dignity was a luxury she had long ago learned to live without. In the end, it was Liam's own frail body that settled the debate. The argument left him breathless, his face pale and his hand pressed against his chest. Seeing him like that shattered Camilla's resolve. There was no choice, there never had been. The next day she called Eleanor and accepted. The transformation was immediate and dizzying. In 48 hours, Liam had an appointment at Mass General with Dr. Morrow's team. Men in suits from a financial management firm arrived to handle their debt. The mountains of bills vanished as if they had never existed. It felt like watching her life being rewritten by an invisible hand. A week later, Eleanor called again. Mr. Bance wishes to see you, her tone announced, leaving no room for refusal. A black car will be waiting in the morning. The car carried her away from the city towards the golden suburbs, where houses were not just houses, but vast estates hidden behind stone walls and iron gates. They stopped in front of a monolithic gate that opened silently, revealing a long, winding driveway, flanked by ancient oak trees. The mansion at the end was less a home and more a private museum, a formidable structure of stone and glass overlooking a vast lawn that sloped down towards the Atlantic Ocean. Camilla, in her best jeans and a clean blouse, felt like an intruder from another dimension. A stern-faced housekeeper led her through cavernous rooms filled with priceless art and imposing furniture, all cold and untouched. There was no life here, no warmth. It was a monument to wealth, not a home. She was led to a vast library. Bookshelves soared 2 stories high, filled with leather-bound volumes that seemed to have never been opened. In the center of the room, sitting in a high-backed leather armchair near a roaring fireplace, was Anthony Bance. He looked different from the man in the diner. He was dressed in a silk robe, and a cashmere blanket was draped over his lap. The fragility was still there, but in this setting, it was juxtaposed with an aura of immense power. His eyes, clear and sharp, followed her as she approached. "Ms. Bellwater," his voice said, stronger than she remembered, though still hoarse. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for having me, Mr. Bance," her voice replied, small in the vast room. "I'm glad to see you're better." "An illusion, I assure you," he said with a dry, humorless smile. "The doctors have bought me time, not a cure. Please sit." She sat tentatively on the edge of a plush sofa facing him. An awkward silence hung between them. "I imagine you think I'm an ungrateful old bastard," he said bluntly, sending my lawyer treating this like a corporate merger. Camilla was surprised by his frankness. "I was just grateful for the help from my brother." "Don't lie to me, child," he snapped, his eyes flashing with intensity. "It's insulting. You saved my life. You acted with courage and intelligence, and I responded by having my legal team investigate every corner of your life and then offering you a check to shut you up. It was a crude transactional gesture, and we both know it." Camilla didn't know what to say. He was right. "I've spent 50 years building an empire," he continued, his gaze drifting towards the fire. "I did it by trusting no one, assuming everyone had an angle, a price. When you reach my position, kindness is a commodity, a performance people put on to get something from you. I assumed you were no different." "What did your investigators find?" Camilla asked quietly. "Did they tell you I was planning to sue you?" He let out a dry, rasping laugh. "They told me you work 60 hours a week for minimum wage, that you haven't bought a new coat in 4 years, that every extra dollar you have goes to your brother's pharmacy bills. They told me that after saving my life, you didn't call the newspapers to sell your story. You went back to your apartment and argued with your brother about the ethics of accepting my blood money. They told me you are a person of character, Ms. Bellwater, a concept so alien in my world that I barely recognized it." His expression serious. "That is why I asked you to come here. The arrangement stands. Your brother will have his surgery. Your future is secured, but I am adding a new condition." Camilla's heart sank. A new condition. "I want you to visit me twice a week, an hour each time. We will talk." Camilla looked at him confused. "Talk about what?" "Anything but board meetings, stock prices, or hostile takeovers." He said, "Tell me about your life, about books, art, about the struggles of common people. Remind me of a world I have spent half a century isolating myself from." He paused, his gaze intense. "My doctors can handle my body, my lawyers handle my fortune, but I have come to the crude realization that my soul has been left completely unattended. Your job, Ms. Bellwater, is to be a consultant for my soul." Before she could reply, a side door to the library opened. A young man, handsome and dressed in an impeccably tailored suit, entered. He had Anthony's sharp features, but his eyes were cold and arrogant. "Father," the young man said, his voice dripping disdain as he looked at Camilla, "I see you're entertaining the hired help. Don't you think this has gone on long enough? You paid the girl. Let her go back to her greasy spoon where she belongs." Anthony Bance's face hardened into a mask of cold fury. "Jasper, this is Ms. Camilla Bellwater. She is my guest, and you will show her the respect she deserves." Jasper Bance, Anthony's only son and heir, let out a short, contemptuous laugh. "Respect for a gold-digging waitress who got lucky? She's probably already planning how to spend the money. You're a foolish, sentimental old man, Father. This girl is a predator, and you're letting her right into the heart of our lives." He turned his cold eyes towards Camilla, a cruel smile playing on his lips. "Enjoy it while it lasts," he hissed, "because I'll be watching you, and the second you make a mistake, I will crush you." The battle for Anthony Bance's fortune had just begun, and Camilla Bellwater, the waitress who only wanted to save her brother, stood right in the middle. Life became a strange, bifurcated reality for Camilla. On Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, she was the same anonymous waitress serving hash and pouring coffee at the Silver Spoon. The familiar smells and sounds, a comforting anchor to her old life. But on Tuesdays and Thursdays, a silent black car would appear on her curb, and she would be driven to the Bance estate, a golden cage of unimaginable wealth and suffocating loneliness. Her visits with Anthony became the still point of her revolving world. Jasper's poisonous introduction had set the tone for the estate's atmosphere, a place of suspicion and silent judgment. The staff was courteous, but distant, their eyes following her with a mixture of curiosity and contempt. She was the outsider, the anomaly, the waitress who didn't belong. But in the library with Anthony, the outside world faded. Their conversations were hesitant at first. He would ask her about her day at the diner, about the lives of the regulars, about Liam's hopes and dreams. She in turn would ask him about the books on his shelves, about the countries he had visited, about the man he was before becoming a legend. She discovered he was a man of deep contradictions. He was ruthless in his assessment of the business world, but possessed a profound appreciation for classical music and Renaissance art. He had built an empire by predicting the future of technology, but felt completely disconnected from the simple human emotions that drove the world. He spoke of his late wife with a tenderness that broke the heart, a crude contrast to the cold dismissal with which he spoke of his son. Jasper sees the empire as his birthright, Anthony explained one afternoon, gazing into the fire. He sees it as a machine to generate wealth. He doesn't understand that I built it. I built it to prove something, to a father who said I'd amount to nothing, to a world that saw me as a poor boy with ideas above his station. I spent my life building a fortress of success, and now I find myself a prisoner within its walls. Camilla began to see the old man from the diner again, the lonely soul seeking refuge in the anonymity of a crowd. He hadn't been looking for money, he had been looking for a place where he wasn't Anthony Bance the billionaire, but just a man. Meanwhile, Liam's surgery was scheduled. The full weight of Mass General's legendary medical machine was now focused on her brother. He went through a battery of tests, met with teams of specialists, and was treated with a level of care and attention that felt like something from a movie. The fear was still there, a constant hum beneath the surface, but now it was laced with a powerful and unfamiliar emotion, hope. The change in their lives was staggering. The $1 million trust fund managed by Anthony's firm began paying them a monthly stipend. Camilla was able to leave her job at the diner, a decision that felt both liberating and terrifying. Sal hugged her goodbye, his eyes misty. "Don't forget about us little guys," he said, only half in jest. He used the money to rent a small, clean apartment near the hospital, filled it with comfortable furniture, and bought Liam a state-of-the-art laptop so he could keep up with his studies. For the first time, she could buy groceries without checking price tags, pay a utility bill without a sense of dread, but the comfort was tainted. Every purchase felt as if it came at the cost of her silence, a reminder of the strange pact she had made. Jasper Bance made sure she never forgot it. He began appearing at the estate during her visits, a handsome, smiling serpent. He would interrupt their conversations with a veiled insult, a sarcastic remark about her background, or a pointed question about her intentions. "So," Jasper said one day, leaning against the library doorframe, a glass of whiskey in hand, "have you decided what you'll buy with your new fortune? Perhaps a tasteful little villa in the south of France." Jasper, "Enough," Anthony warned, his voice low. "Oh, I'm just curious, Father," Jasper continued, his eyes fixed on Camilla. "I want to understand the thought process of someone who wins the lottery. It must be tempting." "It's not a lottery," Camilla said, her voice quiet but firm. "And I have no intention of buying a yacht." "No, a shame," Jasper smiled. "I hear you're living in a nicer apartment, driving a new car. It's amazing how quickly one's tastes can elevate. You're learning our world, Camilla, but never fool yourself into thinking you'll be a part of it." His psychological warfare was relentless. He was a master of the subtle slight, the public humiliation disguised as a joke. He would accidentally spill a drink on her, then laugh it off. He would mention a news story about a con artist who swindled an elderly millionaire, then look at her pointedly. He was trying to break her, to drive her away, to prove to his father that she was nothing more than a common parasite. Camilla tried to ignore him, to focus on Anthony and Liam's rapidly approaching surgery date, but Jasper's words were like venom, seeping into her thoughts, making her question her own motives. She was getting used to this life. She was starting to enjoy the comfort, the security. There was a part of her that was exactly what Jasper said she was. The situation escalated when Anthony made a significant change to his will. Eleanor informed Camilla of the development, her face as impassive as ever. Though Camilla detected a flicker of something, perhaps respect in her eyes, Anthony was establishing a new, charitable foundation, the Bellwater Foundation, dedicated to providing financial aid to families facing catastrophic medical expenses. He was seeding it with an initial endowment of $500 million and had named Camilla Bellwater to its board of directors to be activated upon his death. When Jasper learned, the thin veneer of civility completely broke. He cornered her in the long marble hallway after one of her visits. His face was pale with rage, his eyes blazing. $500 million, he hissed, grabbing her arm. His grip was surprisingly strong. You're not just a thief. You're a cancer eating away at my family, my legacy. Let go of me, Camilla said, trying to free her arm. You think you've won, don't you? He sneered, his face close to hers. You think my father's sentimentality will protect you, but he's a dying old man. He's not the one you should fear. This is my world you've stumbled into, and I will burn it to the ground before I let a nobody like you take what's mine. He released her abruptly, his chest heaving. It's not a game anymore, he said, his voice dropping to a deadly calm. This is war, and you have no idea who you're fighting. He turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing in the cavernous hall. Camilla stood frozen, her arm throbbing where he had grabbed her. The golden cage had suddenly become a battlefield, and she was on the front line, completely alone. Liam's health fears were now joined by a new, more personal terror. Jasper wasn't just trying to drive her away, he was trying to destroy her. Jasper Bance's declaration of war was not an empty threat. He began his campaign not with a frontal assault, but with a subtle, insidious poison dripped into the veins of public opinion. The first article appeared in a notorious Boston tabloid. The headline was sensational. Billionaire's bedside angel or gold-digging swindler, the curious case of the waitress and the Bance fortune. The story was a masterpiece of innuendo and carefully selected facts. It painted Camilla as a calculating opportunist who had ensnared the vulnerable, ailing Anthony Bance. It mentioned her brother's illness, but framed it as a convenient sob story. Anonymous sources close to the family were quoted expressing concern over Bance's unusual generosity and clouded judgment. Photos of Camilla were splashed across the page. A grainy, candid shot of her in her diner uniform, looking tired and stressed, placed right next to a paparazzi photo of her getting out of the Bentley that picked her up. The contrast was stark and damning. She was a caricature, a villain in a story she didn't write. The article was just the beginning. A flood of online gossip blogs picked it up, embellishing the narrative. Camilla Bellwater became a meme, a symbol of greed. Her name was dragged through the mud. Comment sections were filled with wild speculation about her relationship with Anthony. People from her past were contacted, old classmates and former coworkers, their words twisted to fit the narrative of a woman who was always ambitious and looking for a way out. The impact on Camilla was devastating. She stopped leaving the apartment unless she had to. The glances from strangers on the street felt different, laced with judgment. When she took Liam to a pre-op appointment, she saw a nurse whisper to another as they looked at her, and the shame was a physical burn. Don't let them get to you, Liam told her fiercely from his hospital bed where he was undergoing preparatory treatments. They don't know you. But she couldn't help it. Jasper's venom was working. She started to see the caricature of herself in the mirror. She had been naive. She had walked into a trap. Her visits to the estate became fraught with tension. Anthony was furious about the articles, but his attempts to suppress them only seemed to add fuel to the fire, framed as the actions of a man being manipulated. He was weakening. The illness was slowly but inexorably claiming him. He spent more days confined to his bed, and their conversations moved from the library to his vast, gloomy bedroom. He needed her there more than ever, a link to a world of authenticity that felt increasingly distant. He's trying to isolate me, Anthony rasped one afternoon, his breathing shallow. He wants you gone because you're the only one I talk to who doesn't have the Bance last name or a salary paid by me. He thinks if he drives you away, I'll capitulate. I'll give him full control of the estate before I die. Maybe I should leave, Camilla whispered. The thought, a painful betrayal of her promise. Maybe your life would be easier without me in it. Anthony's hand, thin and papery, shot out and gripped her wrist with surprising strength. No, he commanded, his eyes burning with a feverish intensity. You will not let him win. You are stronger than him, Camilla. Your currency is kindness and integrity. His is only money. In the end, you will see which has more value. Jasper, meanwhile, escalated his direct attacks. He had a private investigator following her, documenting her every move. One afternoon, a man approached her in the hospital cafeteria. He was a reporter from a more reputable news organization. Ms. Bellwater, he began, I'm doing a story on the Bance family. Jasper Bance has provided me with documents suggesting you pressured his father to change his will and that you have a history of financial instability and leveraging personal relationships for gain. Would you care to comment?" She felt the blood drain from her face. "That's not true." "He has bank statements, letters. He's building a case that you're exerting undue influence over a man in failing health. He's preparing to legally challenge your position on the foundation board, and perhaps even his father's competency." It was a checkmate. Jasper wasn't just trying to defame her in the tabloids. He was laying the groundwork for a legal battle that would portray her as a criminal and his father as a senile old man. If he succeeded, he could gain power of attorney, seize control of the fortune, and undo everything Anthony had put in place, including the funding for Liam's surgery. The threat was no longer just to her reputation, but to her brother's life. Camilla felt trapped, cornered. She confided her fears to Eleanor during a tense phone call. The lawyer, for the first time, dropped her professional mask. "Jasper is a shark smelling blood in the water," Eleanor said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "He has underestimated you, and he has grossly underestimated his father. Mr. Bance is frail, but his mind is as sharp as ever. Do not engage with the media. Do not speak to anyone. Trust the process, and trust Mr. Bance." But trusting was hard when the world was closing in. The day before Liam's scheduled surgery, the final, most vicious blow landed. Camilla received a thick envelope from a courier. Inside was a collection of photographs. They were of her and Anthony in the library, taken from a distance through the window. In one, he gripped her hand as he told her a story. In another, she adjusted the blanket on his lap. They were moments of simple human connection, but ripped from context and viewed through the lens of Jasper's narrative, they looked sordid and manipulative. At the bottom of the stack was a single sheet of paper with a typed message. "It's a powerful story. The young skimming taking advantage of a dying old man. I can give these to all the major news networks tomorrow morning. Or you can walk away, disappear, relinquish any claim to the foundation and any further contact with my father. If you do, the funding for the surgery remains. If not, I will not only destroy your name, I will file an emergency injunction to block the use of funds from the estate for your brother's procedure pending. A competency hearing for my father. The choice is yours. You have until 8 a.m. Camilla stared at the message, her blood running cold. He had finally found the perfect weapon. He was threatening to stop Liam's surgery, the one thing she would not risk. He had cornered her, holding a knife to her brother's throat and asking her to surrender. Jasper was not just a snake in the garden, he was ready to burn down the entire garden. The world went silent. The hum of the hospital machinery, the distant sound of the city, all faded as Camilla read Jasper's ultimatum over and over again. He would stop the surgery. The words echoed in the terrifyingly silent corners of her mind. He would use the courts, the media, the entire weight of the Bance empire to halt the procedure that was less than 12 hours away. Panic, cold, and sharp. The SIS. For weeks she had endured the humiliation and the lies, but she never imagined Jasper would be so cruel as to use her sick brother as a pawn. Jasper had weaponized her love for Liam, creating a choice that was no choice at all. If she fought for her honor, Liam would pay the ultimate price. There was no time for lawyers or desperate appeals. A legal injunction, even a frivolous one, could mean a fatal delay. Her decision was immediate, a reflex of pure love and sacrifice. The night was a blur of silent grief. She sat by Liam's bedside, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest, memorizing the peaceful look on his sleeping face. He trusted her to fix it, and in a way she was. She was making the only choice that guaranteed his life. At 6:30 a.m., she left a short, heartfelt note on his nightstand, pressed a kiss to his forehead, and walked out of the room without looking back. The gray morning light was barely breaking when a black car quietly pulled up to the curb. She got in. The silent drive through the waking city felt like a funeral procession for the life she could have had. They arrived at an elegant downtown legal office where a lawyer she had never seen before presented her with a stack of documents. It was a comprehensive legal surrender. She was relinquishing her role on the foundation board, waiving any future claims to the estate, and erasing herself from Anthony's life. Her hand trembled as she took the pen, the image of Liam being prepped for surgery burning in her mind. This was the price. She took a deep breath and began signing her name over and over again, each signature a fresh defeat. As her pen touched the signature line on the final page, the conference room door burst open. "Stop!" Camilla looked up in a start. "Eleanor." She stood in the doorway, her face a mask of cold fury, flanked by two imposing security guards. "This entire proceeding is illegal," Eleanor announced, her voice ringing with authority. "Ms. Bellwater is signing these documents under duress. They are null and void." Jasper's lawyer rose abruptly. "I don't know who you are, but my client—" "Your client," Eleanor cut him off, "is a criminal." Just then, a side door opened and Jasper Bance was shoved into the room, his impeccably tailored suit rumpled, his face a mess of shock and disbelief. "What does this mean?" he demanded. "It means you've lost," a weak but firm voice said. All heads turned to a large monitor on the wall that flickered to life. It showed Anthony Bance propped up in a hospital bed. He was pale and frail, but his eyes blazed with a cold, clear fire. "Father, she manipulated you," Jasper pleaded, his arrogance crumbling into desperation. "I was protecting our family." "You were not protecting our family," Anthony countered, his voice gaining strength. "You threatened to withhold life-saving care from a sick child to blackmail a woman whose only crime was showing me kindness. You have proven that you have no honor, no empathy, no soul. You are not my son, not anymore." Anthony's gaze found Camilla's through the camera, his eyes softening. "Forgive an old man for putting you through this, Camilla. I had to let him show his true colors. I had to be sure." He then looked back at the room at large. "Eleanor, proceed." Eleanor stepped forward and placed a single document on the table in front of Jasper's ashen face. "This is an irrevocable legal notice. You have been removed as beneficiary of the Bance estate and terminated from Bance Industries, effective immediately. You are disinherited." Jasper stared at the paper, the world on which he had built his entire identity dissolving before his eyes. The ultimate betrayal had been his own. On the monitor, Anthony Bance took a long, shaking breath, a lifetime of contained disappointment in the sound. He looked at Camilla one last time. "Go to your brother, child. The foundation is yours. Do good with it." The screen went dark. Camilla returned to the hospital in a daze, the traumatic events of the morning feeling like a surreal nightmare. She walked to the surgical waiting area, just as a nurse with a kind face emerged from the double doors. "Camilla Bellwater?" the nurse asked with a warm smile. Camilla's heart stopped. "Yes, it's me." "Liam's surgery went well," the nurse said. "Dr. Morrow said it couldn't have gone better. He's in recovery. Everything is going to be all right." The words, so simple, so powerful, broke the dam of her composure. The years of fear, the weeks of torment, the horror of the last 12 hours, all came spilling out as she sank into a chair and wept with pure, unadulterated relief. The war was over. Liam was safe. The weeks that followed were a time of healing. Liam's recovery was slow, but steady, each day bringing more color to his cheeks and more strength to his body. Camilla visited Anthony Bance one last time in a private hospital wing. The fight had taken the last of his strength, but his face was peaceful. The haunted look from the diner finally gone. "You changed my life, Anthony," she whispered, holding his thin hand. "You saved my brother." "Child," he corrected gently, a faint smile on his lips. "We saved each other." Anthony Bance passed away 2 days later, leaving behind a global empire. Jasper, disgraced and penniless after a failed legal challenge, disappeared from public life. And Camilla Bellwater, the waitress from the Silver Spoon Diner, was now the director of the Bellwater Foundation, endowed with $500 million. The responsibility was daunting. What did she know about running a massive charitable organization? But then she started to read the letters. They arrived by the thousands, each one a mirror of her own struggle. Stories of parents drowning in debt, of families making impossible choices, of hope dwindling in the face of catastrophic illness. She found her purpose in those letters. Guided by Eleanor, Camilla built the foundation on a simple principle: empathy. There were no bureaucratic mazes or cruel thresholds. The only criterion was need and hope. She met with families herself, listening to their stories and offering them the same lifeline that had been given to her. Her past was not a source of shame, but her greatest asset, allowing her to connect with people in a way no corporate philanthropist could. Liam, with his new healthy heart, graduated with honors and was accepted into MIT's engineering program, his brilliant mind now free to soar. He became a youth advisor for the foundation, a living testament to its mission. Camilla's life had changed forever, but not because of the money. Her wealth was not in a bank vault. It was in the photos of smiling children on her office wall, in the heartfelt thank you calls from grateful parents, and in the knowledge that she was transforming a legacy of loneliness into a legacy of hope. She had saved a billionaire's life, and in return, he had given her the power to save thousands more, proving that the greatest changes come not from power or wealth, but from the silent, invaluable currency of human kindness. The story of Camilla and Anthony Bance reminds us that the true value of a person is not measured by the size of their bank account, but by the depth of their compassion. In a world that often feels cold and transactional, it's easy to believe that kindness is a weakness. But Camilla's story proves that it is the most powerful currency we have. A small act, a moment of seeing humanity in a stranger, not only saved a life, it created a ripple effect of hope that touched countless others. If this story moved you and reminded you of the power we all have to make a difference, please take a moment to hit the like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear a story of hope. And most importantly, subscribe to Stories of Black Women for more real-life stories that prove one person can and does change the world. Thank you for listening.